Welcome to the Vault of the Last Scribe, a place of knowledge long sealed by inquisitorial order. To enter is to find truths long since kept in the dark. Stories of the Imperium's greatest heroes, villains, and those that walk the path in between. Stories of the Xenos, the Heretic, and the Mutant. You will find enlightenment and yet also perhaps damnation. To access tonight's tome, you must first have secured approval from the Ordo Malleus, under penalty of extinction. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Among the countless Space Marine chapters of the Imperium, one stands apart, born in secrecy, tempered in possession, and tasked with facing the unfaceable. They are the Exorcists, a demon-hunting chapter forged in the shadows of the Dark Founding. Their names whispered with awe, suspicion, and fear. Heroes of the Imperium, and yet perhaps its most heretical sons. Made in the Dark. Origins. Most of our knowledge of the Exorcists comes from the remembrancers James Ashbay and Elliot Hammer in the oft-redacted Demons Within. To read the text in its entirety, see the sacred periodical White Dwarf numbered 462. The Exorcists trace their lineage to the mysterious 13th Founding, the so-called Dark Founding, an era so shrouded in secrecy that even Imperial archives refuse to speak of it. Born of the Imperial Fist's gene seed, their heritage ties them to the Primarch Rogel Dorn, yet their methods cannot be further from the stoic purity of their progenitors. Publicly, the Exorcists are a Codex-compliant chapter, disciplined, dutiful, and incorruptible. They wear dark crimson armor covered in faint runes and script that are undecipherable to outsiders. A horned skull forms their sigil. Their only deviation from the Codex is that they have two full additional companies entirely made out of scout marines. It is most likely that they need 3 total companies of scouts, is that the initiation rite, discussed later in this tome, has incredibly high rates of failure, requiring a large pool of recruits to pull from. While infamously quiet and mysterious, they act in most ways that other Space Marine chapters would. But in truth, they serve a second, darker purpose. They are trained to battle the servants of the warp, to meet the demonic in combat not only with the bolter and blade, but with the steel of the soul. Throughout their early years, they were noted for being highly adaptable, using a variety of strategies and tactics to outmaneuver each enemy they faced. However, their true strength came from a dark secret, and this secret was born on the demon world Totem 4, where their first chapter master, Enoch Trismiskis, was possessed by a greater demon of Heech, Karath the Shrouded. Throughout the battle, the Space Marines were noted for being extremely resistant to warp magic and attacks. The chapter fought through the streets of the mutated city, and Karath the Shrouded used its immense power to possess the chapter master. Through unimaginable will, the chapter master resisted the entity's corruption, and with the aid of his chief librarian, banished it back to the warp. This encounter revealed a terrible truth. Through contact with the demonic, the Exorcists could learn to resist it. A radical inquisitorial sect known as the Plutonians of the Ordo Malleus gathered and started to research the Exorcists. The Inquisitors used their authority to establish a large facility on the Space Marines chapter homeworld, Banish. The chapter master was interrogated over months before the Inquisitors were satisfied he was free of any taint. Moreover, now that he had resisted a demon once, he was almost immune to any attempts at demon possession in the future. The chapter master in the Inquisition came up with a plan. They would repeat the possession process for every single member of the chapter. The Halls of Tempering. What began as one man's ordeal became a ritual. Under the supervision of the radical Inquisitors, each new recruit of the Exorcists endures a horror unlike any other Astartes initiation. Once a neophyte, who is a recruit who's undergone most of the process to become a Space Marine, they are usually seeing combat duty as a Space Marine scout at this point. They are usually only missing the final few organs required to make them a complete Space Marine. When they're ready to become the full Space Marine, they are taken to the Halls of Tempering. Bound, watched, and warded, they endure the torment of the warp itself. They would be carved with runes of the Dark Tongue to incite demonic attention. Their blood would be drawn, and at that moment, a demon would possess them. Then the Inquisitors exorcise the entity, forcing it through the initiate's flesh, and only those who survive are accepted into the chapter. However, only those whose souls are strong enough to battle the demon pass the ritual. Those who fail to resist the demon are broken mind, body, and soul. The process leaves dark scars, both physical and mental. Some bear runes that burn in the presence of warp spawn, others hide scales or eyes discolored by the warp. Yet all who emerge are forever changed, armed with terrible knowledge of the enemy. Indeed, many exorcists have small gifts imparted by the specific demon that once possessed them. A space marine who was once possessed by a demon of Sheech may have the ability to detect lies. One space marine possessed by a Cornite demon may have a natural strength. Some instances of mutation we also see in the text are horns, bone spikes, scales, eyes, and other physical deformations. These gifts have also come with a cost. One lingering voice that lies in the back of their mind, casting doubt, temptation, or hate, in the same voice of the demon that once shared their body. The text Oath of Damnation by Remembrancer Robbie McNiven explains more. Those who fail suffer a fate worse than death. The bodies of the failed, warped beyond recognition, become called Broken Ones, living prisons, each hosting the demons expelled from their brethren. Some could be forced to hold dozens of demons. Each would torment and battle the Broken One's soul for as long as they are able to live. They are often held in permanent manacles, muzzles bolted into their jaw, and their eyes and ears covered. They are sealed within a massive drifting fortress prison, the Purgatome, where they are cursed to writhe in agony for millennia. Faith and secrecy. The Exorcists hail from the fair world of Banish in the Nerisma Straits. Its population is made up of tribal nomads. The tribes have little technology, hunting and gathering basic resources to survive. It is not uncommon for these tribes to go to war over hunting grounds. Those that prove themselves worthy in these tribal wars are recruited to become exorcist recruits. In the text Oath of Damnation, it describes a piece of religious folklore held by the tribal people. The tribes view the exorcists as immortal angels of the God Emperor, who they view as a sky deity. To be selected by the immortals is to join the ranks and serve the sky god in the stars. To the outside world, the exorcists are paragons of purity. They speak little, reveal less, and fight wherever the taint of chaos festers. Their fortress monastery reflects many of these traits. Known as the Basilica Malefics, it lies buried beneath the acidic swamps of Banish, a place of shadowed halls, ritual scars, and silent devotion. Alongside the typical Space Marine facilities, such as armories, training grounds, and strategic headquarters, are an extensive quarter of the Plutonian Inquisitors. There are also extensive libraries and research facilities dedicated to the study of the warp and the demons within. Within its walls are the Reason Shrines, sacred meeting places of subcults that study every aspect of the chapter's spiritual warfare. The Enochian Guard, the Broken Tower, and the Obelisk, each a brotherhood devoted to the understanding of the warp through faith, knowledge, and reflection. There are countless other rites that an exorcist can be a member of. In fact, membership in multiple rites is common. Discussion of the rites or rituals the brotherhoods partake in are absolutely forbidden from being discussed with outsiders. One specific exorcist, the codificer Tornve, believes that the rites exist for more than just the study of their enemy. As detailed in the McNiven text, as a result of the initiation ritual, every exorcist is left almost emotionless. They feel a hole within that drains all sense of purpose or emotion. It is as if their very soul, once a raging fire, is now a flickering ember about to go out. It is that very soullessness that makes them so resistant to demonic forces. However, it also means the exorcists do not have feelings of friendship, brotherhood, or empathy. Vey believes that the rites exist to give the exorcists a feeling of belonging and fellowship that would otherwise be completely absent from their lives. Every battle the exorcists fight is meticulously recorded within the chapter. Their vast archives of forbidden lore sealed beneath hexagrammic wards and suffocating incense. Specific serfs who lived within these walls their entire lives take care of the vast accumulation of occult lore. It is perhaps one of the largest accumulations of the occult in the Imperium. No matter the demonic enemy they face, there is knowledge within the archive that will help the Exorcists prepare. To many, their scholarship of the occult would be heresy. To the Exorcists, it is survival. It would be easy to compare the Exorcists to the other anti-demon Space Marine chapter within the Imperium, the Grey Knights. While they are both known for their resistance to demonic corruption, there are some stark differences that should be noted. The first is that while the Grey Knights almost exclusively fight demons or other such forces of chaos, the Exorcists are experts at facing any enemy that threatens the Imperium. In addition, is that the Grey Knights are infamous for eliminating any Imperial who sees them in action, in fact even members of the Imperial Guard who fight alongside them. The Exorcists have not been recorded eliminating any Imperial forces. While the Exorcists have not shown interest in protecting civilians, they do not go out of their way to eliminate them. In the text within these walls by C.Z. Dunn, it even records an Exorcist Space Marine giving aid to a member of the Adeptus Astartes after the two of them banished a demon together. Major historical campaigns. Consulting the Adeptus Ordo Hereticus text, Imperial Armor Volume 10, the chapter participated in some of the largest campaigns of the past 2 millennium. In the Ashen War, in 307 M40, a cult revolt occurred on the cardinal world of Dimimar. The entire sector had become consumed by a chaos-affiliated cult. All the while, orcs from the Blood Maw cluster took advantage of the discord to raid and pillage. The Exorcists, alongside the Dark Hands chapter, the Necromundian 54th, the 60th Imperial Guard Rifles, and the Adeptus Astartes of the Order of the Valorant Heart entered the sector to restore order. The Exorcists, alongside a task force of the Ordo Malleus, located the demon leader of the cults known as the Horned God, the Lord of Shadows, on the planet Belfago, protected by a Night Lord warband. The Enochian Guard, an elite Ordo kill team as well, fought their way through the Lord of Shadows keep. The force took heavy losses, and despite all of their strength, were almost broken. It was the venerable dreadnought, Sebria, who sacrificed himself to wound the great demon and remove its armor. At that moment, the librarian Malachite pierced the demon through the heart with his force spear, banishing it. At that, most cult followers across the Ashen sector burst into black flame and died. The Exorcists were victorious, but suffered 1/3 of their chapter lost. At the relief of Stonecrawl in 740 M41, the Exorcist Third Company on the Hand of Glory arrived at a planet facing a Gene Stealer revolt. The High Fleet behemoth was ravishing Ultramar. Stonecrawl, at the edge of the sector, was unlikely to receive any rescue in their time of need. It was at that moment when the Exorcists arrived, killing 2 Void Kraken who were heading towards the planet. The force slaughtered the Gene Stealers, located the Broodlord, and helped cleanse the planet. But it was in the Badab War that the Exorcists garnered the most fame. It was a brutal war in which Space Marine chapters killed each other by the hundreds. Entire planets were destroyed, entire vast regions of Imperial space put to the sword. The war was divided between secessionists who sought to create their own fiefdom and loyalists who fought to establish Imperial authority. The Exorcists set their 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 11th companies, as well as half of their 1st company, in 908 M41. The force was led by the famed 3rd Company captain Silas Alberich, who thought to be the next chapter master. In total, the force was accompanied by 17 ships, with at least 2 battle barges and 3 strike cruisers. It was a substantial force that dramatically increased the Loyalist naval capacities. Their contribution allowed the Loyalists to secure their supply lines and helped rescue the Sons of Medusa at Sagnax. Their largest contribution of the war was in one of the most pivotal battles, the invasion of Saigon. The Exorcists decimated the secessionist fleet and helped capture the critical outpost world of Saigon 4. In addition, the Exorcists were key in the Loyalist assault of Perseus, capturing the star fortress Sentinel Sigma. The only blemish on their record was that their fleet failed to stop the escape of the secessionist leaders in the final battle of the planet of Badab. Modern era and leadership. The Primaris reinforcements tested their secrecy. The Torchbearer fleet sent to deliver the new creations was beset by endless demonic attacks, leaving no living Grey Shields upon arrival. Yet the Exorcists took the gift of Primaris technology, creating their own successors within the Halls of Tempering. Their resistance to possession endured was perhaps even magnified. The chapter is now led by Chapter Master Amor Vaspon, a stoic warrior haunted by the voice of a demon that once possessed him. Clad in crimson gravis armor and wielding the relic blade Voidbane, Vaspon leads with grim purpose, driven by prophecy and doubt alike. He hunts the servants of Nurgle with relentless fury, seeking to prove that no demon's words, no matter how prophetic, can define his destiny. Across the galaxy, Exorcist strike forces are whispered of as the Blessed and the Damned. They cleanse demon worlds, strike down warp cults, and vanish again into the night, silent, holy executioners whose faith is forged in torment. The Power of Prophecy. A recent text uncovered in the vault, the McNiven text, explores the Exorcist in a level of detail previously unseen. The story revolves around a demon unleashed and unchained, and the Exorcist who will do anything possible to return the demon to its prison. Aboard the containment vessel C-517, an Inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus, driven by fear and pride, attempted to interrogate a broken one, a Primaris Exorcist whose body hosts multiple demons. But her arrogance shatters the seals, unleashing the creature's captives and awaking the entity known as the Red Marshal, a monstrous demon once thought forever imprisoned within the Purgatum. On the Exorcist Fortress Monastery Banish, Lieutenant Zadu and Librarian Torin Vey lead the 10th Company, nicknamed the Hexbreakers, in psychic and martial drills designed to battle demons through faith, ritual, and willpower. Their training was interrupted by astropathic warning of the lost containment ship and the rogue demon host. The Hexbreakers were deployed under orders to intercept it before it reaches Imperial space.
The Inquisitor had run. She knew she was doomed if she stayed on the ship now with the demon walking the ship. It had control over the Broken One's body and would be all but unstoppable. She drew her last pistol as she approached her shuttle, walking into the empty hold and peering into the cockpit. After the pounding adrenaline that had carried her through her sprint through the ship stopped, she felt weak and unsteady. Rumond, she called, looking for her pilot. She froze. The Broken One was inside the cockpit. The tall, pallid form of the Primaris Marine was standing stooped forward, facing away from her, watching her in the reflection of the shuttles. Viewing Port Rumont, the pilot was slumped against the controls next to it, skull split open, blood steadily puddling beneath him. The Broken One had ripped away the bolts that attached the muzzle to his face, leaving open gaping holes. His blindfold was torn and hanging from his neck. Only the sacred and rune-carved collar remained, keeping the demon bound to the body.
Hello again, Inquisitor Harrow.
The thing inside the Broken One said.
Going somewhere, are we?
The cockpit juddered and lurched. Despite his mangled state, Ruman's limbs were moving like a puppet's, stoking the shuttle's engines into life, angling it toward the exit bay as the blast the doors open.
I am looking forward to meeting the rest of your retinue. It is always a joy to show the souls of the faithful exactly what eternity has in store for them.
Harold began to scream. She would never stop.
Following warp-distorted auguries, the Hexbreakers traced the demon's trail to a dying world, where the veil between real space and the warp had thinned. Thindium 4. It is the planet where the Red Marshal was once defeated long ago, and where he could regain its power. The Hexbreakers' hunt would be interrupted by a warband of Wordbearers who seek the demon for their own reasons. The Wordbearers had captured the Red Marshal, and the Hexbreakers were forced to hunt down the heretic space marines throughout old battle sites that littered the planet's surface. Zydu was consumed by the need to banish the demon that once possessed him, feeling failure for its return to the Imperium. And obsessed with that, he often ignored repeated advice by Vey to act with patience. After battling their way through the enemy fortresses, they arrived at an old fort named Deliverance. They found that the Wordbearers were engaged in a ritual to free the Red Marshal. However, they did not seek to worship him, but to bind him, which would give the lead Wordbearer the power to become a demon prince. Zydu interrupts the ritual, which ironically does free the Red Marshal, allowing him to wreak havoc on the planet.
Morden called upon the true gods to witness him as he chained the Red Marshal. He had almost dragged Cadus from the Broken One's form. The blood was coalescing into a horned shape. The body carved down the middle, only held up by the sacred words Morden was still spitting immortality called. He closed in on the final verses as a cornea of dark power crackled around his brow. In that moment, he felt he could see all, know all. He was communing with his godhood.
Xaidu hacked at the word bearer in front of him. No skill or finesse, just brute force. He knew he had seconds at most. One knife shattered the enemy's blade, the other crashed through the traitor's skull. Blood jetted from the cracked helm and shot backward as the traitor fell. The merest amount reached the place where the Broken One and the Dark Apostle stood. The blood anointed them both.
The words turned to ash in Morden's mouth as he felt the blood strike them both. In the same instant, he realised Demon Host's pallid fist had latched itself on Viscera, the demon chain axe that was the heart of the Red Marshal's power. Time seemed to stand still, and perhaps it did.
Did you truly believe you were the one in control here, old man?
Control.
I was promised, Morden stammered, trying to assert himself, but the Red Marshal interrupted.
You are mistaken. My brethren would never accept you amongst their ranks. They merely assured you would pay the way for my return.
But say Reem, Morden whispered, referring to the demon that currently shared a body within him.
Say Rhyme and I had an accord for many millennia, as have Scarthrax, Brasshorn, and many more besides.
Many millennia.
Rhyme sought you out, forced his way into your flesh. He made you believe you were in control. What he showed you, the prophecy, it was never true.
You see what I wish you do. See, blind shepherd.
Morden's vision blurred. It became even more fractured. Demons surrounded him, a formless mass of flesh and bone that howled, jabbered, maws and fangs. Talons reached out and grabbed his armor. Tentacles slithered and crawled around his limbs. The iciness of the void penetrated to his core.
They will feast on you, Morden, for eternity.
Once again, prophecy had led to their own undoing. The Dark Shepherd allowed himself to become the very blood sacrifice required to return the Marshal to form. And Xaidu, seeking to stop the Red Marshal by spraying blood on the ritual, had merely helped to unleash him. The Red Marshal was now free to turn the planet into a demon world and forever doom it. The Hexbreakers, now wounded and depleted, had to make a desperate last attempt to stop him. They formulated a plan. It would require sacrifice, one that had been foreseen by prophecy. But like all prophecies, the more you do to stop it, the closer it comes to happening. In the end, the demon was rechained, but a great hero of the Exorcists were forever lost. Through the rites, 2 members of the Exorcists were given prophecies that intertwined. An Eliminator, who saw a prophecy of him shooting his own commanding officer, and Vey, who saw himself possessed, and yet that very possession key to victory. These 2 prophecies came together, as it says in the McNiven text. It had all happened in an instant. Xaidu registered the solid impact of a round through his arm, the pain. He saw the blade shattered as Vey raised it to deliver the fatal blow. He sensed the demon's shock, its outrage. Without thinking, he dropped his guard, letting the knife clatter from his right hand. Rational thoughts, tactics, and strategy, they dissolved in the furnace heat of pure rage, as they always did eventually with any slave of the blood god. Howling, the demon possessing Vey drove the jagged remnants of the blade into Xaidu, into his open guard, aiming for his split and broken breastplate. Xaidu took the blow. Another spike of agony joined with the numbness of his other wounds. Vey was close now, threatening to drive him physically off the edge of the dais. He stood firm, made his wounded right arm obey. The round had passed perfectly between the ulna and the radius, and he was able to unlock what was clamped at his wrist. And forcing his left arm to close around Vey, dragged the possessed librarian in close. The librarian froze, his unnatural shriek suddenly silenced. There was a metallic thud as Zaidu locked the Broken One's collar around Vei's neck. "In the Emperor's name, I bind thee, Daemon," Zaidu spat, and struck once more. The text tells us a story of warriors, emotionless, skilled, and tormented. Warriors who have only one purpose within them, and that is to defeat demons by any means necessary, at any cost, even the lives and souls of their very brothers. The Exorcists stand as both the triumph and tragedy of the Imperium. They are proof that to defeat the darkness, one must sometimes embrace it, if only to cast it out again. They are the blade that cuts too deep, the fire that burns too bright. Their souls may be scarred beyond redemption, but so long as demons walk the stars, the Exorcists will endure, for they are the hunters of the damned, and they will never stop the war within. To my fellow delvers of the deep lore, I highly recommend you acquire your own copies of Remembrancer McNiven's work. Scrivers of the Administorium, Acolytes of Knowledge, and Remembrancers, thank you for taking the time to listen to this tale. More forbidden knowledge, carefully curated half-truths, and unredacted inquisitorial secrets are always to come within the Vault of the Last Scribe. Please consider becoming a patron of the Vault or subscribing to our Astropathic Communications. Until the next tome.